Yeah, welcome back to Scinary Information Nexus. This is the podcast of sin.
Welcome, everyone. It is Friday, October 24th, and today I am joined by, I think, a Viking, a pirate, and Hunter Isham. Hello, Hunter.
Howdy, how's it going?
Doing well. This is your first time on the podcast. You look like you're sitting in a weird spot.
I gotta feel a little more comfortable, I guess.
I feel like this is the one podcast where you come on and it doesn't matter where you're sitting, it feels a little weird.
Yeah, well, let me explain to you why we are dressed the way we are, because when this podcast goes out, it will be October 31st, which is our favorite time of the year, which is Halloween.
Yep.
But today is the 24th as we're recording this.
Because we're heathens.
Mm-hmm. What that means is we get to do this again next week.
Yeah.
For the office. So really happy about that. Are you going to try to dress up, Hunter, and be part of the team next week?
Next week I will. I chose not to.
I know what you're
today.
talking about. This is a costume.
Yeah, actually I'm the DARE instructor for the local middle schools.
I like it.
And tell them about how they shouldn't do drugs.
I like it. Well, to update everyone on Hunter's job role here at Scinary, he is our systems administrator and also a professor of cybersecurity at McLennan Community College. So welcome, Hunter, to your first time on this particular version of the podcast. I know you were on multiple podcasts before, but this is the new iteration of that.
Absolutely. I appreciate being here.
And before we get too deep into today's topics, and we got a plethora of those, what are we drinking today?
Well, today I've got the Deschutes Obsidian Stout, which I think we had in an earlier week. But yeah, we're just trying to get through our stock.
We got to get through the stock because I always overbuy.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
And he always puts it in. So Mario and I have our own fridge for our manager's office. It's a little fridge. We got it so we could have little snacks and stuff in it. And now it's full of beer. Always.
It's the best company in the world, isn't it?
Snacks.
I am drinking a vanilla porter, which is one of my favorite beers since we started this whole experiment. Mm-hmm. From Breckenridge Brewery. I've got two here, so I should be good to go. And Hunter, what do you got over there?
I got an Angry Orchard that I'm about halfway through. I really love them. They're really sweet. They're also gluten-free, which makes me feel a little bit better. I can't handle gluten too well. Then I also got a Kolsch.
Did you just say gluten on this podcast?
I did. Well, some of us have to be health conscious around here. I know.
Some of us
Bruce
also
Wayne may not be, but some of us are.
I'm glad you brought that up because this week's episode is brought to you by Wayne Industries.
Nice.
We got a sponsor.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Is that copyrighted?
Yes,
Wayne
but,
Industries?
I think so.
I had an Uncle Wayne. He had a business.
There you go. Okay.
Was it called Wayne Industries?
It's Wayne's Industries.
It was Wayne's East Texas Hog Farming.
Well, okay, we're sponsored by Wayne's East Texas.
That's kind of an industry.
Yeah.
And Ty is our designated swords person and driver,
Yeah.
Yes.
as it were. So we've got a lot to talk about today, and I'm going to have to warn folks that will be watching this is that there will be multiple cuts as I come out of this gear that is very uncomfortable to wear. It looks good, but it's very uncomfortable to wear. So I don't think I can make the full hour in this. But the first thing I want to talk about, and Joe, you actually brought this up a little earlier, is the Salesforce update. So let's tell the ladies and gentlemen, let the ladies and gentlemen a little update about Salesforce.
You got it?
You good?
Yes.
It's going to slice through everything.
Batman's so powerful he destroys the
just
podcast.
Takes out all the cables.
So, update. You got the update?
You were doing the research on it. Because I actually have a note that says Salesforce update. There is none. And then I went into your office and said, I don't have an update for Salesforce. You said, well, actually, 404 did a thing.
Yeah. So I was reading from 404 Media, and it's less of an update about what actually happened with Salesforce, as we have normally done with most of our updates, and more about the impact in this particular case. So 404 Media was contacted by Shiny Lapsus Hunters.
Yeah. Shiny Hunters, Lapsus.
Yeah, the conglomerate of criminal masterminds. And turns out that and they were able to prove it to 44 Media, and 44 Media supposedly corroborated this information as well, that they have a ton of personal information on several major personnel from several major departments in the government. So we're talking about the DoD, DHS, ICE, but we're also talking about FTC, CDC.
So this came from the Salesforce breach?
Yeah. So it kind of makes you wonder what all intersects with the government as far as our broader.
So 404 said that they corroborated the information,
yes,
but we didn't see the corroboration.
So they said that they reached out to some of the entities and that they were able to confirm some of the information did match for personnel that are currently or were former personnel of those departments. So
for those that didn't watch the episode a couple of weeks ago, the Salesforce breach is probably going to go down as one of the big, if everything turns out to be true as reported in the media, going to go down as one of the biggest breaches in history. As I understand it, there was millions of identities leaked. Mm-hmm. And if this reporting is true by 404, that means government employee entities as well.
Well, and it also begs the question of, what were they using Salesforce for exactly? Yeah. Which, I mean, it's not necessarily, I'm not saying that it's bad for the government to use things like that. But, were any of their covert operatives information in there? Was that a thing? So there'd be questions about that.
Surely not.
You'd hope.
I mean, the CIA, and they should not have anything that comes within 1,000 miles of the internet.
You would think. So, but that's the other thing, and we're going to get into this a little bit more later, but it makes me wonder about other major industry partners or third-party entities. Take, for instance, what happened with AWS recently. How much did that affect government operations? Not just normal government operations, but even the more secure, national security type operations. Because that's honestly a consideration I haven't really heard anyone talk about.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more about that breach that comes out probably in the next 3 to 6 months that will shine a light on a lot of different things.
Well, and what's more is it seems like as of right now, Salesforce is not willing in any capacity to pay the ransom.
Yeah.
And Scinary Lapsus Hunters has already stated that if they don't get the payment from Salesforce, they're going to go after all the individual parties.
Well, I read an article today, and I didn't include it in our packet because I couldn't corroborate it, but I did see some reporting today that Scinary Hunters, Lapsus, Scinary Hunter, Spider, whatever they are, has already leaked over 1 million records. And they actually stated that they're done leaking. What they leaked is what they leaked, and they can't leak anymore. So I don't know if the FBI is all over them or
that may be
because
that's my other thing is if the personal information part about all of the different government entities is true, then we've seen a few different times now where if one of these criminal organizations goes after normal business, it's they may end up getting lawsuits or international community coming together for police action against them. But the second they start touching nation state infrastructure, stuff like that, all of a sudden, there's all these different corroborations that can be had between all the different departments and different countries, and they've found them within a couple months.
That's very interesting. Cut there.
I'm going to do the same.
I was going to say, you too, Joe, huh?
I'm going to get Sven at least on the back of the chair instead of... Yeah.
Oh, careful.
Yeah, I don't want to sit on him. That's going to make it...
Okay.
Yeah, that's better.
All right, 3, 2, 1. So the other thing that happened this week, we're definitely going to talk about AWS because I think it's important that we understand exactly what happened in the AWS. And for those that don't know, AWS had a major outage that started literally throwing people out of bed.
If you don't know,
lucky you.
Yeah.
Must be nice.
Yeah, if you're listening to this on Spotify or YouTube, you probably realized early on that AWS. But we're going to break that down and tell you exactly what happened according to AWS and kind of how to mitigate this. But when I was going through the cyber news of the week this morning, I found this little nugget. This is from Hacker News. Link Pro Linux rootkit spotted in the wild. That's the lead. An investigation into the compromise of AWS hosted infrastructure led to the discovery of a new GNU Linux rootkit dubbed Link Pro. The backdoor features functionalities relying on the installation of 2 extended Berkeley packet filters modules to conceal itself to be remotely activated upon receiving a magic packet, a TCP send packet with a specific window size of 54321. Okay, that even sounds made up, 54321.
Yeah.
That signals the rootkit to await further instructions within an hour window, allowing it to evade traditional security defenses. The commands supported by Link Pro include executing bin bash in terminal, running a shell command, enumerating files and directories, and most importantly, setting up a SOC 5 proxy tunnel.
Wow.
It is currently not known who is behind the attack, but it is suspected that the threat actors are financially motivated. You think? Most of them are.
Right.
So let me read that first line again, because this just came out today. An investigation into the compromise of an Amazon Web Service hosted infrastructure led to the discovery of a new Linux rootkit. So, related or not? It doesn't say that during the investigation of the AWS outage.
Right.
It says AWS hosted infrastructure. So this could be something hosted by somebody else.
Yeah.
So everything in the write-up from AWS about what happened over the weekend really
Didn't mention anything like that, did it?
Well, no, and it really points to, honestly, what made sense as a technical issue.
Yeah.
Except for the initial increase in latency. So everything began from an increase in latency for an API endpoint that ended up causing the race condition that ended up like cascading into basically erasing DNS entries.
So let's put a pin in this Link Pro thing.
Because it's going to fit in there, but we do have to explain the broader thing first before we can.
And I apologize, I did not give these notes to you prior to the podcast because I just found this out. So I thought it
it's
was
an interesting one.
So I think it's important that we talk about what happened today. Today, why is Batman not wearing his mask anymore? Because it's very uncomfortable and very hot. But on AWS had an outage on Monday, and if you were connected to the internet at all, then you were most likely affected by this breach because it affected everything from YouTube to Telegram to Slack. The outage affected a lot of different cloud providers and stuff that's connected to the cloud, right? The problem that one of the problems that was identified in this is that if you were co-hosted between US East 1 region and US West on Amazon, you were unaffected by this outage. And that led some people to say, I've got all my infrastructure in one Amazon instance or one region. So Joe and Ty, why don't y'all talk about a little bit about what happened, how the AWS outage occurred?
So the biggest thing the way I understand it is, like I said, there was a latency issue with one of their API points that caused the normal function that goes through and double checks DNS records to basically unsync between two different endpoints that do that function. And what happened is this one started a process to update the DNS entries, but because it was taking so long, this one came through and updated the DNS entries before this one was able to complete its task. What that made happen, again, because of this latency and basically what they classified as a race condition, it made it to where whenever this one did its final check, it had replaced it with an old one. But this one came back and said, hey, this is an old version. I just updated this to a new version. It needs to be gone. And so we got rid of the old version. Now there's nothing left.
So what kind of condition is that called?
Race condition.
What does that mean?
That means it's a race in time. So these two things don't sync up correctly.
They're competing instead of...
So one beats the other. Yeah. And because it beat the other, but it wasn't expected, it ends up causing a cascading issue.
So... Now, what I was reading is that there was a DNS entry that was blank that caused this to occur.
That's what ended up occurring from the race condition. It basically, the one tried to put in an earlier version. The new one was updating quicker. And so this one hadn't completed the process yet. So there's a couple of error checks in this process. So this one starts trying to put in an older version. This one puts in a newer version. This one goes, okay, but I want to make sure it's the older version, does a double check on it, puts in the older version. This one says, I just updated it with the newer version. Let me go ahead and delete the old version. Now the old version's gone, but the new version's also been deleted by the other one. Yeah. So now there's nothing left there, and they basically don't have any DNS entries.
So whenever there is an outage in any sort of infrastructure, one of the things that I'm trained to do is look at layer one. Is the thing physically connected to fiber or Ethernet? And the second thing that, especially if we're talking about something that's connected to the web, is it's got to be DNS, right?
It sure can be.
It's not DNS, it's always DNS.
So that's the joke that's around here. It can't be DNS, right? It's always DNS. In this case. And it seems like here in the past few years, it's a lot more has been DNS related than it has been like physical cuts or something like that, or an attack. It's just a DNS. Hunter, you want to talk about the importance of DNS?
Well, I mean, DNS is our library to the internet. I mean, instead of having to memorize IPs and, going to 172.42.251.72, you can just type in youtube.com and it takes you magically.
Is that really the IP to YouTube?
No, I don't have it memorized, unfortunately. If anyone Google's DNS, I know that one. Quad A. Cloudflare.
What
a few DNS ones.
What IP address did you just give out?
I don't know. Somebody's going to find out the hard way. Maybe we can blank it out.
Yeah, I was telling Sawyer the other day that DNS is just the phone book of the internet.
So what does it say about, because one of the things that I thought about when this outage happened, and so before I get into that, let's talk about some of the kind of funny stuff that happened.
Yeah.
Because literally people got thrown out of their beds.
Yeah.
Hopefully they were thrown out, not squished.
Because the
beds that actually
the cloud connected power beds or whatever.
Yeah. So they didn't have an offline mode. And so basically what ended up happening was whatever setting you had it on last is what it stayed to. And so if you were sitting up whenever you last got out of bed and you're wanting to go to bed now and lay it flat, no, you're sleeping sitting up tonight. And if you had the heat function on and you now want it to be cold, no. You're going to be sweating tonight.
That's fantastic.
That's why I was like, I'll never have a smart bed.
Okay, so I'm going way back with this one.
Okay.
But you guys probably remember this. So ransomware with edge devices, right?
Okay.
And there's been a few. There's been like they did it with security locks, right? To where they would lock people out of their own locks. They've done it with thermostats where they would turn the heat all the way up to 99 degrees.
That's not necessarily ransomware. That's just teenagers pranking people.
No.
Right?
This was a concerted effort of. It was actually ransomware where they would go through and they would crank it up to 99, and then they would
sounds like some shit Ty would do.
Then they would encrypt. Then they would encrypt the device so that they couldn't access it anymore, And so it was just left at 99 degrees until they paid. There was
Or
another.
they pulled it out and got a new one.
There was
be fair, it
another
is something I
one,
would do.
and we'll go ahead and put the explicit warning on this episode. There was another one that I found much, much more comedic.
Please
It was
be careful.
It was a remote anal plug.
Oh,
that they ransomed, and
that's going to have
and
to
it would
come out of there.
But so it makes
Live
me
a little.
wonder. It makes me wonder how many other days were ruined by the AWS.
How many people in meetings just started?
Oh, this whole segment's going to have to come out. But since this whole segment's going to have to come out, if
shit,
y'all
sorry.
will excuse me. Wow, that was very uncomfortable. What were we talking about?
AWS.
Anal plugs. and
No, we
AWS.
were not talking about anal plugs. God damn it.
I mean, we were.
We were talking to Batman, not Richard. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Sorry, that was the other guy.
yeah. Well, the other guy doesn't approve either.
Yeah, Batman was getting weird.
So
He's got those two horns.
they're not horns, they're ears. My God, how much have y'all had to drink?
Who's y'all?
Homie is drinking like a Viking.
Those two are really doing it for him, huh?
Yep.
All right. So let me explain to what happened.
You're the one that invited a Viking and a pirate to a podcast.
That ain't no shit. AWS services were restored by 6:00 that evening. Something along those lines, correct?
Yes,
That
I
sounds
think
accurate.
according to their timeline, that sounds correct.
So again, this was a DNS outage, basically. Am I correct in saying that?
They said there were three different parts to it. The main one that most people experienced was the AWS.
So
or
it
was the DNS outage.
Yeah.
It was not an attack.
According to
What'd they
them,
say?
yes.
Allegedly.
Okay. So here's my question. How much of the United States critical infrastructure is housed at AWS? Now think about not necessarily the SCADA systems themselves, but vendors and other software providers, SaaS providers that support that kind of stuff.
The one thing I was thinking about was CrowdStrike and how whenever they went down, we really found out how much critical infrastructure relied on them. You know, airports, a lot of even like what we would consider private industries, but are used by so many public entities as well.
Yep.
We're just impacted. So
Yeah, and I'm not going to talk too much about the CrowdStrike outage because it was over a year ago. But yeah, when stuff like that happens and you've got these big one provider systems, which is what you have with AWS.
Yeah.
I don't know of another.
So, conspiracy theory time. And this has been one that I've kind of had fomenting in my mind for a while. So maybe I'll be able to articulate it in a reasonable way. It's kind of synonymous with like death of the internet kind of conspiracy theories, but this is more along the lines of the consistent like AI in like malware push that's going on. The number of democratizing platforms for malicious content, such as ransomware as a service, along with the number of nation state actors that are employing like botnets and trying to get an infrastructure like we saw with Salt Typhoon over the last year with the communications. At some point in time, someone or a couple of someones are going to hit the same golden bug at the same time. And it's going to affect, with all the conglomeration of the internet and its services, take the fact that if it were to, let's say the same thing would happen to affect Google, AWS, and Meta, you'd shut down everything in the world.
So,
But it would even potentially have effects on things like financial institutions and further, right? So my conspiracy theory is that we're reaching a point of interconnectivity and dependency, and at the same time, of criminal enterprises being successful in making money doing criminal things, that eventually the criminals are going to accidentally destroy the internet, and I don't know what's going to happen after that.
Well, this is also the problem with monopolies.
Well, yeah.
You've got 4 people who own everything.
Well, let's just talk about resiliency.
Yeah.
Real quick, because as I understand it, if you're co-located between the two, or by at least two, not only U.S. East but U.S. West, then you would have been unaffected because I guess everything would have failed over to that secondary location, and that secondary location was fine. Now, in my research, firms choose that U.S. East 1 region because it's been around the longest.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest one, isn't it?
It's the biggest one.
Yeah.
It reaches more people. It's on the East Coast.
Yeah.
So all your big stuff is there. New York Stock Exchange, all of that is there. How many firms, and I'm talking $1 billion firms, how many $1 billion firms actually think about that? Think about, I'm putting all of my crap in AWS in one region because AWS has assured me that they have redundancies in place.
Well, so this
except for their friggin' load balancers.
Yeah.
So this is the exact same thing as what happened with COVID and with our supply chains. We have always erred towards the side of efficiency over resiliency, and resiliency is not necessarily always efficient. You have to build in redundancy. You have to have diversity in it as well, because if you have a single point of failure, like everyone is using Amazon, and something unique to Amazon ends up getting taken down, and you have no one else to turn to, then you don't have resiliency in that system. And so it's the same thing that what we saw with the supply chains.
But I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you, I'm Amazon. Don't worry about it. Here's my ISO 27001 certification. Here's my SOC 2 audit. We are redundant. We've got redundant power supplies. I've got fire suppression. I've got 24/7 physical security monitoring.
But it's still the same company. It's still so that means something in a process that may be underlying the technology, or maybe they use a single technology for one solution across the board because it would make sense for them to do so. Any company is going to use a similar solution across all their product line or in their infrastructure. And so it doesn't matter how much redundancy you have there. You don't have the diversity at that point. Remember? So it becomes a single point of failure.
Do you remember a few months ago when AT&T had their outage, and it turned out to be like a BGP routing thing where, again, somebody fat fingered a DNS entry?
Yep.
And it just hosed everything?
Yeah.
AWS is big. AT&T is bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And
I haven't been able to play Battlefield 6 for a couple of nights, and that's because of AT&T's BS.
Oh, well, that's between you and AT&T. I'm talking about real life things, this is Joseph. You know,
no, I did find it interesting.
People are getting thrown out of their beds.
I haven't been able to figure or find any association between it, because I thought it may be attributed to the AWS outage, but it's still going on. As of last night, I was having issues. For some reason, the PlayStation Network, specifically if you're trying to connect to it using AT&T.
Yeah.
Well, my God, Sony's been hacked forever.
Well, that's neither here nor there. But trying to connect to it, if you're going through AT&T's DNS, for some reason, there's a lot of latency there, and it ends up connecting timeout connections happen over and over. So it took me like 3 or 4 times trying to get in order to be able to actually get in. Supposedly, you can bypass it by switching your DNS, your primary DNS, over to Google or Cloudflare. The problem is my current router is locked down. I haven't been able to do So
you're a cybersecurity professional, Joe.
I know, but I spend so much time here doing things. I don't do a lot of things at home.
Yeah. You spend a lot of time here playing Battlefield 6.
I just imparted the router knowledge to Jeremy not too long ago.
Yeah. Well, so, I have a secondary router that's downstream, but it's
Yeah.
The one for my ISP is AT&T, and I found
they make you have that router, right?
Yeah,
like you don't have a choice.
But I can set it for pass through, and I'm going to at some point in time. But my big thing with it right now is I found the setting, it's there. I know exactly how to change it, but you go and the page is configured to 404. And it is, so they took off the configuration page for the broadband side.
You know who I did laugh about all of this though? Microsoft, because they have Azure, like they have their own cloud, but then they also rely on Amazon.
So it still ended up affecting them.
Yeah.
Those dudes cannot catch a break.
Right. Well, so I always like to point back to this on exactly how dependent the internet is on these things.
Yeah.
There was an NPR investigation. This was 2 or 3 years ago at this point. But they went through and they did a very simple investigation. They said, I wonder how much the internet is affected by these things.
Yeah.
So they took, I think they started with Meta, and they said, okay, I'm going to look up all of Meta's IPs, and I'm going to block those IPs in my firewall. Mm-hmm. And then they tried to traverse the internet. Obviously, Facebook didn't work very well. Yeah. Many other pages would, but they did have some issues. Then they did it to Google. They took off Google IPs and tried to traverse the internet. Again, a lot of issues. They said about 60% of the internet stopped functioning whenever they got rid of the Google IPs. Then they got rid of AWS IPs. The second they got rid of the AWS IPs, like 80% of the internet would not function anymore.
I remember reading that.
So,
I was like, damn, that sucks.
Yeah, so I know on Monday, Microsoft was affected by this outage. And like that shocked the shit out of me because it was like, why are you using AWS? Like you got your own shit. It's supposed to be CJIS certified too.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Apparently, so I think Microsoft did it even for their own redundancy or just to kind of diversify a little bit.
Well, it didn't work.
Well, so, but, that brings up another point that I'm sure you're going to be happy to expound upon, that redundancy doesn't do you any good, or diversity doesn't do you any good if that doesn't include failover. Yep. So if you have this product uses this and this product uses this, but there's no crossway between them, and this product, then you've lost all this. It doesn't matter. It has to be able to fail over to the other solution in order to be able to actually have the redundancy part of it. Other than that, you just have diversity between products, which can be beneficial in its own right, but it's not the same.
Yeah, because I think like one of the complaints was that people didn't want to use Azure. They wanted to configure their own stuff, and they could do that with AWS. And so Microsoft was like, okay, fine, here's our deal with AWS. And then AWS is like, haha.
Yep.
Nope.
So,
yeah.
Microsoft had many issues Monday when AWS went down. Mm-hmm. You're telling me they were using US East 1 only?
Oh, I don't know about that, but probably.
So that's my point. Yeah. Like, according to AWS, if you were co-located, you did not experience any issues. The problem is nobody's going to co-locate at those prices.
No.
Right? Because it's like $1 billion a minute.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we talked about this. For most businesses, it doesn't make sense. If I'm a regional business and I'm housed out of New York, I don't need to co-locate anything to the West Coast. I'm never going to be servicing the West Coast.
Right.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. And for the vast majority of business, unless you're like a Fortune 500 company, that really is the way that it goes. You choose a region that's going to most benefit, like us. I mean, we do most of our stuff out of Dallas. Yeah. Because if we're going to do it anywhere, it's going to be somewhere closer to us.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for us to have shit over in California.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
Yeah. But again, Microsoft.
Yeah, Microsoft's big. Very big.
Yeah, I mean, the worldwide.
I can't say Microsoft from itself.
And everybody relies on them to a
So
degree.
when you looked at Down Detector, right?
Yeah.
Down Detector, everything was straight up. Like outages.
Just dead.
Just drastic slopes.
So
it's like, oh, look, they're winning. Wait, no. The up is bad.
It was some of your favorite social media platforms, Snapchat, all of
Various
that.
things.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how much critical infrastructure was involved in that. I don't think we've gotten a full reporting on that yet.
Because the thing is, like, I haven't heard anything about like how hospitals were affected or law enforcement was infected or anything like that.
Yeah.
Well, and that's just like what I was saying earlier.
Because I always think about emergency services.
Yeah, but even like government. I know they're in the middle of a shutdown right now, but even so, there's a lot of things, especially for covert or national security kind of functions. But a lot of them, they use the internet. And I know the government has some of its own resources, but we've seen more and more, especially as technology has outstripped government funding, that they tend to outsource that to private entities.
Mm-hmm.
You know what was not affected in this outage?
What?
Netflix.
Doesn't matter. They upped their prices again this year. I unsubscribe.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I moved to the ad model.
they upped their prices so they could pay for co-location.
Oh, is that how that works?
No, I'm serious. They're one of the few that are co-located, and so they did not experience any sort of outage.
That's funny.
Now, your internet provider that was providing service to Netflix, they may have experienced an outage, but Netflix was golden,
Right.
you know.
Netflix was like, that's not our problem.
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand that this AWS outage points out something that we talk about constantly on this podcast, and we talk about it in our talks, is the fact that we have a multitude of single points of failure in our critical infrastructure. AT&T owns, 80% of the backbone of the internet?
Something like that.
AWS is probably the largest cloud provider in the world. If you're going to spin up a SaaS solution as a startup, you're going to choose AWS. Because they've got data centers all over the world, right? But if you're a startup, you're not going to spend the money on co-location just for redundancy's sake. You're going to believe what AWS says, in that we are redundant from a power standpoint, but we're not redundant from a bogus DNS entry.
Well, and that's so, especially when you start looking at things like race conditions or the way a lot of our technology is set up, and the reason why I think so much of the issues that were caused on like Monday and Sunday have continued on into the week. Whenever these things happen, so they can say, I got 99.99% uptime, whatever. But it's that 0.001% whenever it does happen, especially whenever you're such a broad swath of the internet. Whenever AWS goes down, you can cause so many different issues with how the technology is configured and works that now even whenever AWS comes back up, you're still waiting on that company to get their stuff good, that company to get their stuff good, just so you can get all your stuff communicating right. It's this cascading effect of everyone's dependent on this one thing, but whenever they all go down at once, now we basically have to almost rebuild the web from scratch.
It's easy to have 7 nines of uptime if you measure in billions of minutes or billions of seconds, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's easy to have those 7 nines when you're talking about that. But when it does happen,
It's felt.
and it's going to happen again. There's AWS, all the good people at AWS, they work hard just like everybody else does. They're trying their best, I'm sure. But even they will tell you that, it's possible that it can happen again. And it could be worse next time. It could absolutely be worse. You mentioned monopoly.
Yeah.
Technically, AWS is not a monopoly.
Technically.
Yet. Give it time.
Neither is Google.
Yeah.
Technically.
Neither
is AT&T.
But I think Google's gotten in trouble a couple times.
Well,
they had to sell
slaps
some
on the
stuff
wrist.
off. Yeah.
they have.
Yeah.
And so this is one of those few moments where, Joe, you and I will agree on government intervention on this kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, it's
Because it is a huge liability for the United States of America in critical infrastructure to house all this stuff in 3 providers.
yeah.
Right.
And 3 providers that are doing different things, but still,
Yeah. 3.
if one of the 3 go down, everybody's hosed anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
They're
I think that-
regularly attacked and compromised and stuff. I mean, you hear it all the time.
And I mean, you have sorry, I'll go ahead and let you go.
I was going to say that you brought up a good point earlier with, if we rely on so few cloud providers, all it takes is for a few of them to go down. And what that made me really think about was how different all of these cloud solutions can be constructed. I know they all have their own little advantages, disadvantages, what have you, but I wonder if other ones might also be vulnerable to a similar vulnerability. And, you talked about conspiracy theories, and that made me think that, this could be a nation state testing, such a vulnerability to impact, a large portion of the United States.
So I'm going to tell you back in 2016, this is going back a ways, I know, but I'm going to regale you guys with the tale of Dyn DNS.
I felt this coming.
Dyn DNS was, I don't know if they still are, but the largest DNS provider on the planet. They were in 2016, 2017. They got hit by a denial of service attack, a distributed denial of service attack. That distributed denial of service attack, now check this shit out, was sending 1.2 terabits per second of traffic at Dyn DNS. And it cratered DNS for Dyn. Now, the way that happened was, and it kind of comes full circle. The attackers had spent at least a couple of years gathering a botnet. And their botnet was composed of IoT devices, thermostats, refrigerators, shit like that. Admin get you into anything back in those days.
Right. Well, those days.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so they used that and then did a denial of service attack toward Dyn DNS, which took down, and I remember it took down Twitter, it took down YouTube, it took down everything. And it was down for 8 hours. I mean, there was no coming back from that. Now, hopefully there was lessons learned from that where they've got different DNS and Cloudflare and Google now. But yeah, back then, Dyn DNS was the DNS provider of the rich and famous, as it were. And when they got taken down, it hurt a lot of companies for sure. Is it going to take a massive outage at AWS or at AT&T or at Google for the federal government to finally step in and say, you know what, enough's enough?
Yes.
Probably.
Hopefully.
I mean,
Hopefully.
What do you mean, hopefully?
Hopefully.
so it's it's one of those things to where it's kind of like disaster prevention. It's not a thing until it's a thing. It should be a thing earlier. It should be a preventative measure. It should be something that we say, hey,
but we can see the writing on the wall right now.
You can say that about tornadoes and hurricanes.
Yeah.
And there's still problems getting funding to the right places in order to get preventative systems in place.
But here's the thing. The government can't prevent tornadoes and hurricanes.
No, but they can mitigate it, right?
Well, I mean...
Are we talking conspiracy theories? Because
No. There's no weather control freaks here.
Yeah.
For weather stuff, it's about mitigating or lessening the impact of the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that doesn't have anything to do with,
monopolies,
Yeah.
So here's the thing. We are all fairly intelligent people. I know that's up for some debate at times, but
we're just a little wacky. It's fine.
I mean, we've got collectively at least a year and a half of higher education between us.
4 brain cells at least.
Four brain cells.
4.
And if we can see this coming, it's the federal government. They've got rooms full of people, full of nerds that are actually doing the risk calculations on this. And they've got a room full of nerds backing them nerds up, right?
So this is the issue. Look, it's the same issue as what we had with the supply chain. Everything about how we organize our technology, how we organize our business, revolves around efficiency in systems. And the underlying reason behind why we focus on efficiency in systems is profit. That's it. So the reason why that's not going to happen until something drastic happens is because the loss has to be so great that dividing up the companies now costs less.
And think about who owns these different companies who own most of the internet, right? So you've got people who are looking to, because they want to make more money, so they're looking to cut costs elsewhere, but they're like, oh, well, if we go ahead and just, hey, Jeff, can I have some AWS servers. Like if you're Google or whatever, you just go over to Amazon and be like, hey, by the way, I could use some infrastructure. So now you've got Google and Microsoft and all these other companies relying on AWS.
I love that we get to switch roles here for a second. But the underlying argument against things like that is, okay, so your cost for a small business goes up across the board.
Yeah.
Because now in order to be able to start up something, you can't go with the leveraged power of a single conglomerate that's been able to build all this efficiency and infrastructure. You have to go with some other smaller company, which is going to cost them more to do the same thing that Amazon's doing right now.
Mm-hmm. But my argument to that, damn you, Joseph.
Every now and then. Every now and then.
I was ready to hear your defense.
My argument to that is that the cost of not doing anything will be far greater in the future.
Yeah.
It is a future present value calculation.
I agree.
Interesting.
And that is so with a lot of this that's always been my thing is the calculations can either be on the bottom line by the end of the year, or it can be on the bottom line of society by the end of 10.
I'm old enough to remember, you guys were never alive, but I'm old enough to remember when Mall Bell was broken up in 1980, I believe.
Oh, is that how Southwestern and all that came?
Yeah, so that's how they were broken up.
Wasn't that the Summer of Love, though, shortly after?
No, God, that was in the 60s.
No. Okay, so the Summer of Love is actually a real thing. It was a large meeting amongst the 6 telecommunication companies, unproven to some degree to fix prices. They didn't actually fix prices, but there was a unspoken agreement that if one person set a price at this, we're probably all going to be about that same price, I would think. And so it was a way for them to get it, because it was right after the big breakup. It was a way for them to get around. Anyways.
Yeah. So
the Summer of Love.
Yeah. Whatever. I don't remember the Summer of Love, but I do remember that the federal government declared a monopoly and broke it up. And one of the companies that came out of that was AT&T.
Yep.
Guess what?
Yeah, we're back to it.
We're back to it, right? And it's a shame. And I get what you're saying about efficiencies, but when you're talking about telecommunications, internet connectivity, I mean, you've got the stock market that relies on the internet.
And look, I do think so. Out of those 3, AWS, AT&T, and Google, AT&T I think is the target, because let's put together some other really fun pieces over the last year.
He didn't mean target. He meant,
No, I mean target. Just not from us. from nation states, right? So let's put together some fun pieces over the last year.
To be fair, isn't there like 3-4 major phone providers, and it would be AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint?
So,
they don't even. AT&T is getting away from phones.
So, but you had Salt Typhoon. Salt Typhoon was a major attack on 6 different telecommunication companies. I don't remember, but I want to say AT&T was in that list. But either way, that's a concerted attack trying to get a buildup of infrastructure, because Salt Typhoon's ultimate purpose, at least from everything I've read, was not about ransomware. It was not about trying to destroy or stop. It was about surveillance and getting infrastructure in place in order to be able to distribute. We saw the same thing whenever we've dealt with some router-based attacks from a specific nation-state actor that also was building up infrastructure for being able to pass. And again, you could easily see how that could target from that botnet that they were building things like AT&T specifically. And then you have in New York, they found the large bank, the SIM farm.
Yeah.
What was it? 500 different SIM cards. Yeah. It was just, they were built in serial in just a room inside an apartment building in New York. They found it was not that far away from the UN, and so they figured it was a targeted attack. Honestly, I think it's more criminal enterprise. They said that according to the FBI and authorities.
So wait a second. I am lost. They were creating SIM cards?
No, they had a bank of SIM cards.
So they had like an apartment room. And
they
it was
stole
filled with
SIM
shells.
cards.
I don't know if they stole them, how they
It doesn't
acquired
matter.
them, but they had them all ready to run some sort of either phishing or large scale like DOS attack against.
Yes.
You know what that
somebody.
sounds like to me? That sounds like a Mossad operation.
We didn't say that.
It did pop in my head, but we didn't say that.
Well,
no.
so the FBI has at least said that there was some indication in their investigation. They haven't gone into full thing. That there was some intersection with cartels or mob activity.
Yeah.
So that a nation state actor, they say a nation state actor was most likely involved, but that there was also some leveraging of criminal enterprises in order to either build these things up or perhaps run them. But either way, you see how that also could be a pretty concerted attack on cellular infrastructure, which again intersects with telecommunications and the internet. So everything that we've seen from, and I'll say basically nation state actors other than Russia, everyone that is acting in the broader context of the internet and cybersecurity, we've seen very concerted efforts to specifically target.
Why'd you say except for Russia?
Because whenever we look at Russian attackers or Russian-backed enterprises, it's always towards ransomware and destruction.
Yeah.
At least normally.
Oh, yeah.
And they leverage Russia.
But they've probably got state.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
We just don't see
It
as
doesn't
much
come
of it.
from Russia a lot of the time too.
Yeah, right. They use proxies a lot, and most of those are criminal proxies. And because they're criminal proxies, they need a payout.
Yeah.
The only way to really get a good payout is through ransomware. And so that's simply why that ecosystem works the way it does. The other ones, your Iran, your North Korea, which North Korea has been going very heavily towards the recruitment attack, which is really fun. But yeah.
And I will say this, North Korea has gotten really sophisticated,
Yes.
like extremely sophisticated, because what they're after is crypto.
Yes.
They're trying to get crypto.
Right.
And so they've gotten really sophisticated. So we are rolling up on an hour, and I know this podcast will not be an hour long, but we're rolling up on an hour on our side. I do want to wrap this up by saying, to anybody that's listening, more than likely you're either an IT director at a small to mid-sized institution. You're not going to have these AWS problems.
Yeah.
Right. You're not going to have these AT&T ish. I say you're not going to have these AWS problems, not directly. What you are going to have is the SaaS applications that you rely upon to provide instructional learning. If you're a local government, maybe, dispatch services, recording services, things like that, then absolutely you could be affected by this. So what we always recommend is have a backup plan that is pen and paper.
Yeah. That's what I was about to say is, it's so odd to hear coming from a technology company. But, whenever you're working in a restaurant and the card reader goes down, every restaurant is required to have in the bills, at least in most like corporate restaurants, is required to have in the building one of the
card swipe things.
Card swipe things that does the carbon paper.
I was about to say the carbon paper,
Yep.
so you can write down the transaction.
And it's 100% because you have to have some way to be able to still do business.
Yeah.
And there was a way to do it with pen and paper, always.
Yeah.
And you just have to have that on standby.
Yep.
It is part of any recovery plan. You need to be able to have any and all options on the table. And so if it's going to take 3 days for everything to come back up and running, a week, how are you going to do business in the meantime?
Yeah.
Is the question.
Agreed. And it's just one of those things. We do live in the world that we live in. It's getting more and more fraught with risk. So be aware of your risk. Be aware if you are using a SaaS application that even though it's hosted and it's got nine nines of, reliability, and you see the SOC 2 and the ISO 27001, there's always that one thing they didn't think about.
Yep.
And it's probably DNS. All right. And we're out. Thank you, everybody, for your time, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.